beautiful people. Today I have my dragon mug for the Year of the Dragon. This is a Starbucks mug I picked up, and I have aptly named it Haku off of Spirited Away. It's one of my favorite white dragons, and my mom decided to name her cup Falcor, and I think that's just delightful. We will be talking over some of what I've been doing in the new year. Specifically, I've been working through the Artist's Way book. Artist's Way is written by Julian Cameron, and I'm sure you've seen either on TikTok or on YouTube, if you are in like the artist space, a lot of people talking about it. On TikTok, a lot of people were talking about how it really has helped them creatively. So I thought, since I've been struggling and I have needed a good practice to focus in on, that this would be a good start for me. So grab a cup of tea. My current tea is called Tower of London by Henry's and Sons? Howard's and Sons? I think it's Henry's and Sons. And let's get started. So if you're not familiar with the Artist's Way, it has two main principles, and then it breaks everything down into a 12-week course for you to practice in. The two biggest principles are the morning pages and the artist date. The morning pages is where you write 3 pages in the morning and kind of just word vomit out. Nothing is structured, nothing is premeditated. It's all just getting your morning thoughts as soon as you wake up from your brain onto paper and out of the way for the day. You don't want to look back on it. You don't want to have any kind of like filling it in later on. No perfection. Usually it recommends doing this long-handed rather than typing it on the computer, so that way you just let it go, let it be. You don't have to spell anything perfectly, so on and so forth. And then the artist date. This is where you take yourself out on a creative date to enjoy the world, such as going to museums, going to exhibits, going out to different stores, and letting yourself be playful and creative in that moment. It's usually something done on your own. She doesn't really recommend going with other people, because this is about getting to know your own inner voice and listening to your own inner creativity, your own inner child, your inner playfulness, being and exploring yourself. That being said, I am 3 weeks into doing this practice. I've only worked on week 1 and 2 of the overall book. There are a couple of reasons for this. One, I am slowly combing through and getting all of the little nuggets and things out of it for myself. And 2, there are things that I am editing from the practice that works better for me, rather than following a rigid structure like she has in the book. I'm doing this because following a rigid structure is not necessarily conducive to how I work, especially since I have my own inner mental struggles, as well as I do have some physical things that I'm going through that make life challenging. And the biggest part of this whole experience is I'm not a morning person. It takes me a while to get up in the morning. It takes me, especially as it is getting cold and being cold, it just takes me a lot longer to do things. So here are the 3 things that I've changed for myself for this book. The first thing is yes, I do try my best to get it done in the morning, but if I'm not, I'm allowed to do these pages anytime during the day, especially when I feel stuck. Sometimes I get stuck trying to get work done. Sometimes it's hard to move past something, and I'm allowed to just take this practice, take my book that I'm writing in, and move forward with it and just sit down and write those 3 pages. Sometimes I set a timer, sometimes I don't. It can vary from time to time. Sometimes it takes me an hour to get stuff done, sometimes it doesn't. But I allow myself to do this anytime during the day, not specifically in the morning. 2 is when I get stuck, I'm allowed to scribble. One of the things that she says in the book is like, if you don't know what to write for that time, is to write, oh, I don't know what to write for that time, write right now. I don't like that. I think it is boring. I am not just write down nothing and write down nothing and nothing and nothing until the idea comes. I find that this practice is about being present. It is about being in the moment of your thoughts, being in the moment of yourself, and being in the moment of your environment. If you can't think of something to write down, think of the things around you. What brings you joy? What brings you happiness? What's been bothering you? Take note of the world around you, write it down and describe it. And if you can't do that, then you're allowed to scribble. I can't always formulate my thoughts clearly to be able to write it. Some of that comes from me being dyslexic. Some of that comes from my own internal struggles and trauma of writing and the experience of writing. Some of it is just how my brain works. Sometimes I can't think of words. Sometimes it's hard to put those words down on paper. So I allow myself to scribble on paper. This is a practice that I have done for my sketchbook. This is a practice that I did to get better at drawing, and more so I did it to just sit down and put a pen to paper, and that's what I think some of this practice is sitting down and putting a pen to paper. So I allow myself to scribble the environment around me. I allow myself to just make marks on the paper until the words come. I allow myself to draw. If I start to see something in the scribbles, then I allow myself to draw that out. Whatever is in that moment, I may come back to it, I may not. The morning pages are usually something you're not supposed to come back to, so I don't really think about it, but it's a great way of filling that space, filling those 3 pages, and allowing yourself to be present in that moment. And then the third thing that I changed is she says to not come back to the stuff you scribble on your morning pages and to write it cover to cover. I don't necessarily do this. That's just not how my brain works. It's not how I think about things. So there are a couple of different methods that I actually took from the sketch notes book, and just from my own personal journaling practice that I have kept up with over the past few years. It's been an on and off practice, but I have come back to it, and that's the important bit. Being said, sometimes while I'm writing, while I'm thinking about other project thoughts, other project ideas come up, and if it's something that I want to come back to, I put a box around the thought or idea that I want to come back to, or underline it or circle it, something to note to myself that this was important, that this is what I want to come back to. Sometimes it's like I'll be having a thought or idea of how I want to talk in a video, how I want to communicate in a particular situation, how I want to do something as far as a project goes, or sometimes I just have a big list of things that are going on in my head or that I need to do, and that I don't want to break the moment and try and get my planner or my phone to break out to write these things down, to remember to do them. I took all those things and put them in the first page of the book that I'm writing in as sort of a permission slip, so that way I don't get stuck in trying to do things exactly and trying to work on a model that has worked for somebody else and not be able to be myself, because there is no one shoe fits all in this project, in working on your personal development, on connecting with yourself rather than being scattered all around or lost in feelings or grief that is stuck around you. Grief can come from many different places. It doesn't have to deal with a literal death in your life, although that is a very common thing to deal with grief with. There can be grief with losing a job, there can be grief with losing touch with friends, there can be grief with all of this. This leads me into the next part that I want to talk about that I'm discovering with this practice so far. Into 2 weeks of following the advice and chapters in the books, going at my own pace, is that this practice is like I am dredging out an inner pond. I love this kind of talk because it reminds me of Avatar: The Last Airbender, where they're going through the chakras and clearing out his internal space to be able to free his mind to enter the Avatar state. And I guess you can think of the art state like the Avatar state. And this practice allows me to clear out my inner well so that I can be more full, clean, clear water and movement rather than the muck, the ick that was stuck at the bottom of the pond. I mentioned before to friends, family, that I feel very full, and some of that is like, oh, I feel very full of creations and ideas because I have a lot of sketchbooks, a lot of digital projects that I've started and stopped or had to pause and not be able to come back to because of work, because of grief, or I have completed it but never shared it, and it makes it feel like I'm very internally full. And that has been challenging for me to be able to consume new things as far as like TV shows, or be able to take time and learn something new because I am so internally full. This way is a practice, and doing those 3 morning pages is a practice of dredging out that space so that I can have more spoons to consume this kind of other media, so I can have a internal storage, so to speak, of being able to do more and be more and share more, to get all of that inner gunk out of the way. So a good example is there have been some things that have happened in my life recently that I did not realize how angry I was. I knew I was angry about it, and that it would sometimes come up and upset me randomly throughout the day, or I would have a feeling about it, or I just would end up feeling a little low. Usually those thoughts I would either push away, or I would let go of and do some meditation on it, or just have a quick talk with a friend to get that out of the way. But it was still reoccurring how angry I was, and some of that anger I didn't quite understand why I was angry, and doing this practice really helped me go through my own inner monologue and clear the way of those thoughts to understand why I was feeling a certain way about a situation, or what about that situation upset me so much, so that way I can handle those emotions better. It allowed me to feel those emotions. Sometimes with being an adult, you feel like, oh, well, I have to just push through it and not really think about it. Or, oh, you think you're better than these emotions, and you don't allow yourself to fully experience or express that. And so I get caught in that trap sometimes, even when I'm very conscious of how I am and how I feel. So that is what I have found that this practice really helps with. It just stream of consciousness, get whatever I am feeling in that moment out of the way, out of my system, so I can do better and be better. I'm doing my morning practice in a A5 book, which is a 9x6 book. This is one of my favorite sizes to work with. It is a good standard size to be able to express my thoughts and ideas out and draw if I want to. The book that I'm writing in is a Hobonichi blank pages, but I will be switching over to a Midori MD book that is gridded as soon, just so I can have more pages and more space to write in. The Midori has a little bit more pages than the Hobonichi blank book does. I've chosen my favorite Lamy Safari pen to work with this. I will be switching them out with different inks as I go along, so that way I can enjoy the experience of writing in this to make it as easy as possible for me. I've placed everything in the Masuda cover, which is my favorite cover that Hobonichi has ever released. I haven't used it in a couple of years because the print started to fade because of how much I had worn it, and I love, love, love it. But I thought it would be great to bring this back out so that way I can enjoy the experience of doing this dredging. It's already hard work, and I don't want to make things even harder by working in something that doesn't make me happy. Speaking of happiness, I was recently gifted a set of photo cards of one of my favorite members from the boy band BTS, and who is J-Hope. I love him so much, and I use this as a way to continue to cheer myself on as I am working to better my mental health. Another way my practice differs a little bit from what the book says is that I'm putting quotes in this book to cheer myself on, and also allowing myself to collage. And doing this allows me to be present and bring a little playfulness and fun to this practice. As I'm working through this book, I have allowed myself to highlight in the book. I know, a little taboo. And it allows me to come back to ideas that have sparked from those words that are shared there. Instead of allowing them to just be in the book themselves, I have decided to make little zines out of different quotes and different sayings in there and make them a little bit more cohesive, so that way I'm making sure I'm taking in the material more rather than allowing it to disappear in passing. Because just keeping highlighted notes from a book or like in the book, I don't feel like I absorb it as much or as well as if I were to have everything written it down. I will be sharing these zines for you to go and look at for yourself and enjoy. I had a lot of fun making them, and I think you will enjoy looking at them too. You'll be able to find these on my website. I think it's a great time to get into these little one-page stories while I'm doing this practice, because then I can take the quotes and things that I found in the book or some of the information that's caught my attention and put them into a space that is easy to come back to and revisit in a way that makes sense for me. I love this because it's like taking the idea of sketch notes, which is something that I love to share and love to talk about, especially when doing kawaii journaling or doing any kind of journaling practice, because it is so useful for both taking notes for videos and doing personal notes for your own internal dialogue.
I hope this gives you a better insight on the artist way and what the practice could be for you and yourself, considering how my practice differs a little bit from what is said in the book and what others have talked about. I am going to continue to update you on this practice as I go through it and share the little books that I make from it. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day. If you like more of this, please give this video a like and follow me.